Welcome to Read Your Comics, and we're jumping into the final month of the Age of Apocalypse. Thanks for joining me. My name is Daryl. I'm the host of Read Your Comics, and I am doing a real-time read-through of the Age of Apocalypse for the 30th anniversary. Each week, I'm looking at the books that would have come out that week 30 years ago. We're jumping into the final month of the Age of Apocalypse. This is our first set of issue 4s. We got Astonishing X-Men by Joe Mad. We got X-Man by Steve Skroce. And these are kind of big climactic battle issues. Before I jump into them, I just want to give a quick shout out to all the viewer support. All your likes, comments, and shares are always appreciated. And if you're new to the channel or just haven't done so already, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. And if you have missed any of the Age of Apocalypse, I do have a playlist. You can find it right there. And catch up on the event from the very beginning, all the way back to Legion Quest. Let's kick it off with the Joe Mad book to get it going. I like this cover with Rogue, the profiles, the kind of triangular characters standing to the side. We got Iceman in it, though. He wasn't part of this team. He was part of the Amazing team. So, if you're keeping up, you might be like, well, why is he on there? Nice color contrast. Don't know if I love that the logo, they just kind of stretched it out there. But otherwise, pretty cool cover. I think this one pops really well. You get a really good look at Rogue's haircut there, too. Jumping off with a splash page of Blink right off the bat. And I was looking at this and thinking, I think I figured out why this character became such a hit. You got elf ears, you got thin body with, boobs up by the shoulders. And this character really made an impression on a lot of people at the time. But she does get a very big moment to shine as we jump on into the issue. Now we get a double page splash, and right away we're already realizing this issue is just going to be a brawl, right? Starting with Blink, who is upset that Holocaust has killed Sabretooth, because that was our cliffhanger in the last issue. We had back-to-back issues with the cliffhanger being a dead Sabretooth. So I didn't like that about the first two issues, even though I did enjoy them. I just didn't like how they both kind of ended the same way. But in this one, we're getting the battle between Blink and Holocaust. I was kind of cracking up at the way Holocaust is built right here. He's like a big triangle right here. You can see his skull and his ribs and stuff. But if everything were proportional, these arms, the shoulders would be like, I guess his elbows, if he had them up and his arms bent, his arms would only go down to about there. So crazy proportions that Joe Mad is bringing here, but I think that was one of the appeals to his style. In Holocaust, he's pretty much just taunting Blink the whole time, but she puts up a good fight with her Blink powers. I don't understand exactly what she does with these. She's got these spears in her back. Does she charge them like Gambit does? She first appeared in the Phalanx Covenant, and it's been so long since I've actually read that. Other than her teleporting power, I don't know if this is some kind of additional thing that she does here. She seems to charge them up and uses them as weapons. But Joe Mad's going to do a great job of Holocaust skeleton face and the expressions, even for a skull, throughout this whole battle here. And interesting body positions as well with her and later on with Rogue. Another big spread here. We do have panels, but we got a 2-page spread with a close-up of Blink with one of her charged spike things. Look at that grin on his face, too. And he's like I said, he's just taunting her and telling her that, she's got a good power and all, but she's nothing compared to what he can do. And she uses her Blink power and drops him into the vat of I don't know what it is. Acid, I guess, is what it's meant to be. And it seems like she did it. She beat him. That's all it took. Blink, the kid, took out the most frightening villain other than Apocalypse himself, of the whole crossover. Another great splash page of Rogue and Wild Child and Sunfire and Morph taking on some of these infinite stormtrooper characters. The cannon fodder for the X-Men. They actually get to kind of kill them and stuff because I guess they're alive, but they're genetically made. They're kind of clones in these suits. It's never 100% explained, except that they are genetically made. Whether they're living or not, I don't know. They're not robots. Then you get Rogue barking out orders for Sunfire to take Wildchild and go rescue the humans they use to make the Infinites. They basically cull these humans and turn them into the Infinites somehow, like use their genetic material to create the Infinites. But there's some to go save, so she's like, you guys go save them. Me and Morph are going to go find Sabretooth. Morph is being silly. Look how many arms he has. He's morphed himself into like multiple arms. I mean, he's even got an arm coming around here. Morph is a lot like Plastic Man as this series goes on, because she tells him to be serious and to zip it, and he makes a zipper like come up and zip his mouth shut. But even he's saying like not even cracking a smile, and he comes to terms like maybe this is the end after all. And like every issue, we've got to drop in on Magneto. Now, Magneto was captured in Amazing X-Men just last week. So if you aren't reading the Amazing X-Men book along with this book, you would definitely get lost. I think some of these titles aren't 100% necessary to follow the ultimate end game of the event, with the exception of the 2 X-Men books. So Magneto had a battle with Apocalypse and he was captured. So here we're seeing him being kind of tortured. Apocalypse is showing a little hologram of Rogue to show that she's in distress and that he's helpless to do anything about it. Not great right here, this storytelling. You see like Magneto kind of reach out and grab Apocalypse by his throat, which, you know, he doesn't flinch at that at all. But what I didn't understand here is Apocalypse just like snapping his fingers, and you see this Rick, and then Magneto falls down. So what did he do to Magneto right there? Did he blast him with some kind of like electric shock? Did he twist his hand? Like, I mean, I don't know. This is not a great storytelling moment by Joe Mad. Little lost as to what he exactly did to Magneto, but he did something to knock him out. I guess that's all that really matters. Here's our scene where we have the Infinites and the humans that they're culling. Wildchild shows up and roars. He looks huge there, like a giant werewolf or something. I mean, he's a smaller character. Nice little panel of Sunfire coming in, blasting the Infinites and setting them free. So, yay, the mission's complete there. Meanwhile, we see Blink a little startled as Morph comes running in and asking what happened to Holocaust. And she's like, I dumped him into that genetic stew. All of a sudden, he burst out. So it wasn't that easy. He wasn't going to go away quite that easily. Morph is apparently able to turn into like a lead wall or something to block the stew from getting on her. And you see this hand come out, and it's green, and you're thinking he's going to be kind of more disfigured than he already is, like his suit or whatever would be melting off of him, and he's just going to be his energy form. But no, he just looks like he did. So that was kind of a letdown, actually. I mean, him coming back, sure, he should have come back with some sort of damage from all that, don't you think? Looking gigantic here, and again, like, you got to look close sometimes, but the skull features and stuff inside Holocaust is the stuff I really dig. And as he's like using his club energy gun arm, whatever that is, to pin Morph against the wall, you see Morph with this grin, and then Holocaust is writhing in pain. Morph says, ouch, your brain is reversing its electromagnetic flow. That has got to hurt. And Blink is like, how did you do that? And says, well, I'm not really Morph. I'm Rogue. I just touched Sydney is his name. I just touched Sydney to have his morph ability so I could get in close to Holocaust so I could use my power on him. So I would think that she would have used her power to like absorb a little bit of his power or something and use it against him. But other than him being just this like energy monster in like a containment suit, it's not 100% clear exactly what his powers are. Morph does come in, and as he turns into like a giant brick and smashes Holocaust on the head. And then we get just a nice power pose of the team who's left as they're getting ready for the final battle. I like how Rogue says, where I'm standing, it looks like you're finished. He says, let's stand over there. Wham! And he hits her pretty hard because she puts like a crater in the ground as she went flying across. then the rest of them are just going to attack. And it's just the big brawl, right? Except for Morph. He's going to go check on Rogue, and she's not waking up, so he morphs into Charles to make her snap out of it, which she immediately does and recognizes what Morph was doing and says he did the right thing to get her to come back to her senses. But then he's got to do his Plastic Man stretch here and catch Blink and Wild Child, who got thrown away by Holocaust. Then Rogue gets her chance to just have like go hand to hand with him. This is what I was saying earlier, is with another good like pose of her doing the spin kick and the foot blurring like manga style. He blocks it. There's a little bit of a crack right there. And Holocaust reveals to Rogue that Magneto has been captured and threatens her son too, which isn't the smart move. And even she says that. Like, you shouldn't have brought that up. You just made the wrong move. And she did make a stand over there joke as well at some point in there. Yeah, it was over there. Then wait over there. Says, I've waited a long time, Shiro. Then wait over there. Just kind of call back to what he said to her. Then she's just going to pound on him enough to make him, to break his suit just enough. And then he's on like a teleportation pad. And he says, you're coming with me. And just then, an ice lasso appears and pulls Rogue out. But she wanted to go with him. And he was like, nope. You want to save him? That's fine. We do too. But we're going to work on this together. And look who's with him. Good old Sabretooth. He's not dead after all. So even though we had 2 cliffhangers of him being dead, he's still going to be alive. He's got to make it to the final battle, right? Another power pose here, kind of repeating what we had before, but now it's in shadow. And you get like the great spotted blacks with just the eyes and teeth coming through for this. And they're like, it's over. We're going to end this. The age of apocalypse is over. And it tells you to read Amazing X-Men number 4 and then get ready for X-Men Omega. So Amazing X-Men number 4 doesn't come out till the end of the month, technically. So, like I said, even they're saying if you just read these 2 main X-Men titles and the bookends, Alpha and Omega, you probably would have gotten enough out of the event. But if you read everything like I've been doing through these videos, you get a little extra. So that's it for this series. This series is done. Astonishing X-Men is done. It's over. It's finished. There's not going to be another one. The following month, it's going to revert back to, I don't know if Astonishing was originally Uncanny or if it was the adjectiveless X-Men, but it's going to revert back to whichever one it was and the original numbering too. So long to Astonishing X-Men. Joe Mad does come back, of course, for the next. It must have been Uncanny. I think it was Uncanny. Now that I'm thinking about it being Joe Mad, and that's the book he worked on. So Astonishing going to revert back to being Uncanny X-Men in the following month. Final issue of X-Man, or is it? Steve Skro's still working on this. Jeff Loeb is our scripter. Pretty cool opening page of Apocalypse. And his face looks so much more wrinkly and monstrous in this than in any of the other titles. I think Skros makes Apocalypse the most threatening out of any of the books across the line. So the Shadow King is telling him that the telepath that Domino went to go find is throwing off some crazy energy, and that Domino, your most vaunted assassin, has been killed. Or is just non-responsive. She's not showing up. I don't think they actually killed her. They put her in like a, I think like I compared it to the Ghost Rider penance stairs. She was in sort of like a catatonic state of reliving all of the pain she'd caused on everyone else. This enrages Apocalypse, and he throws a little fit right here with his ever-changing powers of energy blast, growing real big. I think it's funny, the Shadow King in his little containment chamber here. It just dawned on me when I read this. I think when they came out with an action figure for the Age of Apocalypse version of Apocalypse, he came with like a little accessory that was the Shadow King in one of those, like a little plastic thing about this big. That was that more or less. What kind of an action figure is that going to be? So again, Apocalypse is saying no matter, it doesn't matter. We're winning anyway. We're crushing everything. and he goes to check on Magneto, and this is basically happening right before what we saw in that issue that we just looked at, because it says to reference Astonishing X-Men 4 for what happened there. Now we get back to Nate Gray, the X-Man. He doesn't call himself that. That was just the title they came up with. And he's taking on Sinister, who revealed himself in the previous issue. And he's going to blast him pretty hard with a telekinetic blast. This lettering over the artwork here, I feel like if I were Steve Scrooge and I saw this finished product, I know he didn't do this lettering, I would probably be annoyed. Because Steve Scrooge puts a lot of detail and time and work into this area that gets covered up by this lettering, which is kind of needless. And I like some good sound effect lettering. If you ever watch my Hulk videos where I praise Jeff Purvis and his lettering all the time, the difference being Purvis would find a way to work in the lettering so that it fit in the panel and didn't obscure stuff, whereas a letterer just decided, you know what, I'm going to throw a big sound effect right there, right on top of the artwork. So Nate just kind of going off because Sinister had killed Forge in the previous issue and revealed himself. Look at him blast Sinister basically in half, and it shows Sinister's power to regenerate. And then Sinister's going to reveal some secrets and tell him how he created Nate using Jean Grey and Scott Summers as, genetic material. Although the way he says it sounds not so much like Nate's like a clone, but almost like Jean had a baby. Because he says, for centuries, I waited for such a magnificent combination, the prelate Cyclops with a wondrous telepath named Jean Grey. I waited for the two of them to come together, and finally, with a slight touch of growth acceleration, the result was more than I could have imagined. Meaning Nate. So I waited for them to come together. And then I think it was X Factor or Factor X, whatever it's called. They mentioned how when Jean was in the pens that her and Scott kind of formed a little bit of a relationship. So did she have a baby while she was there? And Sinister took the baby. But then over here it talks about when Scott helps Nate escape, he doesn't realize that Nate is essentially his son. So I don't get they came together. It seems like he could have just got their genetic material, the two of them created it, and it wouldn't have mattered, like if they came together or not. Anyhow, that's the origin. He's Cable. That's what the title was to begin with, and he was made by Sinister in this world, in much the same way he was in the other one, with Madeline Pryor being a clone of Jean Grey herself. Good looking shot of Sinister here. I like his Age of Apocalypse outfit. I mean, he could probably have a little bit more pants instead of wearing the onesie there, but otherwise looks pretty good. And then Sinister reveals, like, look, I made you because Apocalypse and I once shared the same goal of elevating Homo Superior, but Apocalypse is now on essentially a world-ending mission to just destroy everything and then like rise up from the ashes. And Sinister's not really down with that. So he created Nate to fulfill his destiny to kill Apocalypse. Just then he's shot, and it's Sauron and Teresa or Siren. And they're telling Nate to run, and he's like, y'all should be the one running, not me. Like, I'm holding my own. You guys are in danger. You guys go. And as Sinister like comes to from being blasted again, Nate just kind of wails on him again, tells him like, I'm not a puppet. I'm not just gonna do what you're telling me to do. Blah blah blah. Then we get this big Ultraverse ad. They were really pushing the Ultraverse. This was right after Marvel had purchased it. He wails on Sinister some more, essentially saying he's not just gonna fall in line for Sinister, but he is going to go off and try to end this. But in his mind, he's thinking, I need to go find Magneto because that's who Forge told me to go find. He doesn't say it to Sinister, but Sinister's like, oh, good. It's working out the way I want it to anyway. It doesn't matter. But as he's leaving, he's like, I'm I'm actually bleeding. Is it possible? After all this time, can I be dying? And he keels over, and I guess he dies, because we don't see him again, at least in this book. It appears Sinister died. Nate goes off to say goodbye to Sauron and Teresa. They have a smooch that has been building up towards that for this whole time. And Nate decides he's gonna take off to go find Magneto. He gets the psychic wave and sees that Apocalypse has captured Magneto, so he knows what he has to do, which is just go to Apocalypse after all. And he does. He goes to Apocalypse's horned citadel thing. And then we get a little bit of crossover with Factor X, where in the previous issue, Apocalypse had ordered the pins to be culled because without Sinister, they serve no purpose anymore. Or that's what these characters were going to do, which I think is the Guthries or the Bedlam brothers. It's hard to tell. You can't really make them out right there. And Nate pops in and kind of saves them, or at least starts to. And just then, Mom and Dad show up. Hey, Mom and Dad. It even gives them the Cyclops and Jean Grey like kind of logo when it says their name. And Nate already getting the feeling of like, I feel like I should know these people. And then he gets a psychic bond with Jean, and Jean figures it out. Like, because of this bond, she figures it out. Cyclops thinks he's doing something to Jean, though, and blasts him. Get a good zark there. Jean tells him to stop, like, wait, he's a friend. And then she kind of has like a little mind conversation with him. And he's like, I'm going off to fight Apocalypse. And they're like, well, good luck with that. We're not. We're going to go do something else. And that's kind of how we're going to just wrap up the issue, leaving it on the cliffhanger with Nate going to take on Apocalypse, and it's going to point us to X-Men Omega. So if you were, for some reason, just reading this title and not the other X-Men books, you'd at least get your conclusion in that title. But look, X-Men number 5 coming out next month, along with Cable 21. So Nate's going to, kind of a giveaway that Nate's going to survive this, and he's going to come into the main universe. I liked the X-Men title, and I kept getting it after. For at least another year, I kept it up. I thought it was a pretty good title. It was an interesting idea of kind of like a character that was being thrown into another reality, and he came from this horrible world and was thrown into a world that was, comfortable, but still had its problems, right? And along the way, he was still kind of removed from what was happening in the main X-Men books. And I think that's what I liked about it. Plus, Steve Skroce continues doing the art on it into the ongoing series of it. And it's the only title that carries over from the Age of Apocalypse. So kind of a spoiler there, though. And that is it for the first week of the final month of the Age of Apocalypse. I think these were 2 pretty good issues. I mean, these were just climactic battle issues, answering a few questions in this one, and just a big brawl in this one, more or less, and setting up the big grand finale in the X-Men Omega bookend. That's it for this week. I'll see you next time, and as always, read your comics. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my breakdown of this issue, you can support the channel by hitting subscribe. It costs you nothing and helps other comic fans find the channel. You can also visit readyourcomics.com for cool merch, like this. Read Your Comics isn't just a brand, it's a mantra. And when you wear a Read Your Comics shirt, you are helping spread the word. For more classic comics conversation, be sure to follow me on Instagram at read.your.comics. And if you're still here, why not watch one of my older videos? Here or here.